Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Look, we've all been hit by some really unexpected news this week. News that's, well, it's rippled right through the entertainment world and honestly beyond.
It really has.
So today, we're taking a deep dive into the life and legacy of Julian McMahon, a name that I think for so many of you listening instantly brings up these really memorable characters he created.
Absolutely. So many iconic roles.
Yeah, and the core news, the thing that I think really shocked everyone, is that this really beloved actor passed away. He was only 56. It was on July 2nd, 2025. We now know it was after a private battle with cancer.
And the public announcement didn't actually come until July 4th, just a couple of days later.
Right. So our mission today really is to unpack the layers of his career, which was remarkable. We want to explore the impact he had, especially on his colleagues. The tributes have been incredible, and uncover some, surprising details about his life that have come out through all this.
Yeah, trying to understand what made him, as Alyssa Milano put it, magic to those who knew him, and what his legacy means now.
It truly was a shock, wasn't it? I mean, the fact his illness was so private meant that, well, basically nobody outside his immediate circle knew he was struggling.
Exactly. That privacy, while understandable, definitely amplified the shock when the news broke. Passing on the 2nd, announced on the 4th, it hit hard.
It really did. And the timing, coinciding with the holiday in the U.S., just seemed to make it resonate even more. That immediate wave of emotion online and everywhere was just huge.
It was. It really showed how much affection there was for him, both from fans and people he'd worked with.
What did his family share initially? I know his wife released a statement.
Yes, his wife, Kelly Paniagua, she put out this really poignant statement, confirmed he died peacefully after a valiant effort to overcome cancer. It was very moving. She talked about his love for life, family, friends, his work, the fans, and how much he wanted to bring joy to people, but also, understandably, a clear request for privacy. And, that way of handling it, keeping the struggle private with dignity. Then the announcement, it often leads to exactly this huge collective outpouring when the news finally hits. Everyone finds out together and processes it.
Yeah, a shared moment of grief almost. So, okay, when we think of Julian, those TV characters, they are just so vivid for so many people. Let's start there.
Makes sense.
For a huge part of the audience, I mean, he was Cole Turner in Charmed. That half-demon, half-human love interest, just so impactful.
Oh, absolutely. He was on the show from 2000 to 2005, right? A really central figure.
He really was. Dark, captivating, but somehow, charming. People love Cole.
And what's interesting about roles like Cole, I think, is how Julian managed to humanize these morally gray characters. He didn't just play the bad guy.
No, not at all.
He gave them this vulnerability, this kind of complex inner stuff that made you question things. You could argue he sort of shaped how those kinds of anti-heroes were written on TV back then.
That's a great point. And then he completely shifted gears, didn't he?
Yeah.
To Dr. Christian Troy in Nip Tuck.
Whoa, yeah. Total 180.
Lead role there. Handsome, charming, famously promiscuous plastic surgeon. That show ran 6 seasons, huge critical acclaim, and he got a Golden Globe nomination for it. That's significant.
It really is. And watching that shift from the supernatural Cole to the very, very human but equally flawed Christian Troy, it was fascinating.
Definitely.
Christian Troy, on paper, could have been just unlikable, right? But Julian gave him this depth that just drew you in. It backs up what some people observe, that he just kept getting better at his craft, playing these beloved, complex characters so incredibly well.
Showed incredible range.
Massive range. It cemented him as this really versatile, compelling guy on TV.
And then more recently, of course, many of you will know him as Jess LaCroix in FBI, Most Wanted, leading that team for 3 seasons.
Right before his exit from that show, which was also a bit of a surprise back in March 2022.
Yeah, it seemed like he was constantly finding new territory on TV.
He really was. Moving between those very different characters over, nearly 2 decades? Supernatural guy, conflicted surgeon, dedicated federal agent. Each role showed a different side of him. He really evolved.
Yeah.
He just had this knack for pulling you in, whether he was playing the hero, the villain, or, somewhere in that messy middle.
But it wasn't just TV, was it? He made a pretty big mark on the big screen, too. I mean, Dr. Doom.
Yes, Dr. Doom.
Taking on that iconic Marvel supervillain role in both Fantastic Four movies, 2005 and 2007. Stepping into a role like that from the comics, it takes a certain kind of presence, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. Playing a villain that well-known with such a passionate fan base, it's tough. You have to bring the menace, but also that kind of tortured intelligence.
And he did. He really brought that gravitas.
He did. And beyond the big blockbusters, his film list is actually pretty varied. He wasn't afraid to mix it up.
No. You see him in thrillers like Premonition, action comedies like Our Ed.
Dramas, too, like Paranoia, You're Not You. Even that quirky Australian film Swinging Safari. It shows he was willing to explore different genres, work with all sorts of people.
And he kept working right up until the end. His latest stuff includes that 2024 film The Surfer with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, that premiered at Cannes earlier this year, right?
It did. And also The Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat. And then in what feels like a real full-circle moment, his very final role.
In that Netflix series, The Residents?
Exactly. Playing the Australian Prime Minister, Stephen Roos. Given his own family background, it feels quite poignant somehow.
Looking at the whole picture, it just highlights his versatility, doesn't it? And his staying power.
Yeah.
Moving from hit TV shows to being a Marvel villain, then doing indie films and a big Netflix series. It really speaks to his work ethic, his dedication.
And his adaptability.
Absolutely. Always finding new challenges, never shying away from different kinds of roles. He wasn't afraid to take risks.
Okay, but maybe the most moving part of all this, certainly for me, has been seeing the tributes pour in from people who worked with him.
Oh, completely. They've been incredibly personal, very emotional.
They really paint a picture of the man behind the characters, don't they? Far more than just a list of credits. Alyssa Milano, for example, his charmed co-star, she said she was heartbroken.
Yeah, I saw that.
She wrote, Julian McMahon was magic. That smile, that laugh, that talent, that presence. She said he walked into a room and just lit it up.
Not just charisma, she said, but kindness, too. Mischief. Soulful understanding, beautiful words.
They really are. And she went deeper talking about their working relationship.
Right. She said he made her feel safe as an actor, seen as a woman, challenged her, teased her, supported her. That says so much.
Called him more than my TV husband, she said, a dear friend.
You know, getting that kind of feedback from a co-star, it's more than just a compliment. It tells you about the kind of atmosphere he fostered on set. Trust, collaboration. That's gold for actors.
Definitely. A generosity there, beyond just the script.
Exactly.
And Holly Marie Combs, also from Charmed, she shared an Instagram reel. Photos.
Yeah, with the caption about his unyielding zest for life and crazy making sense of humor, saying he'll be sorely missed.
And that really poignant line referencing their late co-star Shannon Doherty. I hope you find our lady friend and dance in those rose petals.
Oh,
just wow.
It's hard, doesn't it? And Rose McGowan, too, calling him a force of brilliance, wild talent, and humor, sending prayers for his family and fans. These aren't just standard condolences.
No, you feel the genuine affection, the shared history.
And it wasn't just the Charmed cast. Ioan Gruffud, who played Mr. Fantastic opposite his Dr. Doom.
Right, his nemesis in the films.
He called the news terribly sad, said even though they were enemies on screen, there was always so much lightness and laughter working together. Every encounter was a joy, an honor to be Dr. Richards to his Dr. Doom.
That's lovely. And Dylan Walsh from Nip Tuck.
Yeah, he sounded completely stunned. We rode this wave together, and I loved him. My heart is with you. Rest in peace. And he also remembered, all those years you had my back, and my God, we laughed.
Even Dick Wolf, the boss of the FBI franchise.
Put out a statement calling it shocking news, said his team was deeply saddened.
And it's really striking, isn't it? All these tributes from different times in his career, people he played opposite in totally different dynamics. But they all hit these same notes: kindness, humor, presence.
Yeah. What do you think that collection of sentiments really tells us about him as a person?
Well, that's the fascinating thing, right? They consistently paint this picture of someone who brought light, kindness, humor, genuine connection. It feels like he really transcended the roles he played.
Absolutely. He clearly left a mark as a human being. Nicolas Cage's words were quite something, too.
Oh, yeah. What did he say?
Called him the most talented of actors. One of my favorite people. He was a kind and intelligent man. I mean, coming from someone like Cage, that's incredibly high praise.
Wow. That speaks volumes. Not just talent, but character. Presence, the effect he had on people around him.
Exactly. These aren't just, polite things you say. You get the sense of someone who genuinely lifted people up.
And speaking of character and background, let's touch on some of those personal details because they add another layer. He was born in Sydney, Australia, July 27, 1968.
Right.
But the bit some people might not realize is his family background. His father was Sir William Billy McMahon.
Who was Prime Minister of Australia back in the early 70s, yeah. From 71 to 72.
It's quite a legacy to grow up with, isn't it?
It really is, and it makes you look at his career path maybe a bit differently, knowing he came from that world.
How so?
Well, there's that anecdote from the Australian director Stephen Elliott. He described Julian as a wild child who kept his father on his toes.
Ah.
Yeah, and even recalled being amused watching Australian security agents, ASIO, apparently following Julian home sometimes. It paints this picture of someone who, despite maybe a privileged start and that intense political scrutiny, was determined to forge his own way.
Interesting. Like he was actively pushing against expectations.
Maybe. It suggests this kind of rebellious spirit, which might have fueled his adaptability as an actor, his willingness to take on those edgier, diverse roles. He wasn't just going to be the PM's son.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. He started out, well, actually, he was a model first, wasn't he? In the 80s.
He was. Before getting into acting on Australian soaps like Home and Away, he did like 150 episodes of that.
Wow. And then personally, beyond work, married 3 times. First to Danny Minogue, the singer, back in 94.
Right. And then to actor Brooke Burns. And they shared his daughter, Madison, who's 25 now.
And his final marriage to Kelly Paniagua in 2014, who shared that moving statement. It really rounds out the picture, doesn't it? A life lived very fully, both in the spotlight and privately.
It does. Navigating that unique path from, political lineage in Australia to becoming a household name in the U.S. and globally.
It speaks to a complex life, one that wasn't just about the roles he played.
Exactly. And the common thread, really, through his background, his career choices, those incredibly heartfelt tributes. It feels like it's about someone who just pursued his passions with real conviction.
And touched a lot of lives doing it.
Yeah, whether through his acting or just his interactions with people day to day.
So, reflecting on all this,
Yeah.
what does it all mean? Julian McMahon's journey was, well, pretty remarkable. Starting out modeling, Australian soaps, then becoming this fixture in Hollywood, big movies, beloved TV shows, decades of work, incredible range.
Absolutely.
And that overwhelming feeling of loss and respect from his peers. It's such a powerful testament, not just to his talent, but, like you said, to the kind of person he was.
Yeah, his legacy feels bigger than just the characters, as memorable as they are. It's about those connections he made, the joy and laughter people talk about, that consistent dedication to his craft that seemed to just grow over time.
He wasn't just an actor.
No, he was a colleague, a friend, a presence that genuinely made things better for the people he worked with. And, ultimately, he captivated millions of us watching. His whole career path kind of reminds you that real success often comes from being authentic, connecting deeply, on screen and off.
It really does. Which leaves us with a final thought, maybe. You know, in a world where we often define public figures just by their biggest roles, what can we really learn about someone from hearing all these collective memories, these tributes from people who knew them well behind the scenes?
How do those glimpses into their personal impact change how we see their legacy? Does it shift our focus from just, say, Cole Turner or Christian Troy to Julian McMahon, the person?
Yeah. How does understanding the human being deepen our appreciation for the work and for the life lived? Definitely something to mull